We saw how Fortress launched the missile towards the hospital, and we had the thought that his life was over now as he would be going to jail due to this crime. But Choi sees a very different reaction from the audience. He sees that the people are thanking him because they survived because of him. Now Choi wonders what exactly is going on here. We see that 10 minutes before the missile launch, Ilak and the assistant manager of the Tempest Company went to meet Kim So-yoon and scout her for their squad. Ilak says that Kim So-yoon is wasting her talents, and he reminds her of the Silence Monster situation that happened not too long ago. If only So-yoon had the backup of Tempest, this sort of mishap wouldn't have happened. Ilak further tells So-yoon that as long as she associates herself with trash like Hanjo and others, she won't be able to grow any further, and in the end, she will always be saved by that man named Choi Gangshik. Kim So-yoon asks Ilak why he came here to scout her instead of Choi Gangshik. If they are trying to scout talent, that man would probably be more helpful than me. So-yoon further says, "Do you not have enough confidence that you would be able to control that man?" We see that Ilak was very pissed at her for such provocation, but he was holding his anger back. But suddenly, a large commotion happens outside, and we see that a large army of Antropy has attacked the hospital. Kim So-yoon asks why there is an Antropy swarm in the middle of the city, and she jumps in by breaking the window and attacks all the monsters to safeguard her sister. So-yoon realizes that there are too many monsters and she can't last, and suddenly too many fire missiles attack the monsters, and we see that Ilum has used his superpower to help her. Ilak plans to use Thumbelina to make So-yoon indebted to him, so he uses his firepower at full force and obliterates the monsters, but So-yoon knows that Ilak is trying to show off and his ability is more like a marksmanship type, so he won't last long either. One of the Antropies attacks Thumbelina, but the assistant manager uses superpowers to save her, and now the missile that the slime engineers have launched attacks all the Antropies, and soon after, Choi comes from behind in a very shocked and frightened state, but when he checked the surroundings, he was glad to see that there were no casualties because of him. Choi had really thought that his life was over because of the missile, but to think there were Antropies here, Choi tells So-yoon to take rest as he will take the lead from here. Ilak was angry to see Choi Gangshik arrive here too, and probably he would also steal the spotlight. Thumbelina waves towards Choi, and Choi realizes that the Antropy has spread around Miss Thumbelina again. All of the patients of the hospital were glad to see Choi and were cheering for him, and Choi attacked all the monsters in a very flashy manner to increase his popularity again. Ilak was shocked to see Choi's strength and wonders how this could be the power of a normal human, and he is even stronger than the last time. Choi uses his earthquake skill to finish off the giant army of Antropies at once, but the Croacle gives a bad omen cry, and he thinks that it's not finished yet, and he sees a huge army of Antropies heading this way, and moreover, all of them were aiming for Thumbelina. Choi calls the fortress and asks for help, and the fortress attacks all of its ammunition like a disco light and kills off the whole ant army. Now some helmet-wearing noobs arrive, and they announce that the Tempest will take over the situation, but Choi tells them that everything is already settled, and there are not even any cores left, but there are some scraps if you look hard enough. The patients of the hospitals say that it looks like the Tempest came to support since all of the Tempest can't hold a candle to the cameraman alone, they should at least come and clean monster corpses. The assistant manager tells Ilak to calm down because this is the leader's message. Choi now greets his viewers and asks, "Isn't this new missile amazing?" Kim So-yoon was thinking that if a swarm of Antropy came all the way to the middle of Seoul, does that mean that there are no longer any safe places? Thumbelina comes and picks up So-yoon and asks, "Are you all right, sister?" and scolds her for fighting so much. Choi is shocked to see that Thumbelina is the sister of Kim So-yoon. Kim So-yoon thinks that she can't take care of her sister in this situation, so she goes and asks Choi to take her. Choi misunderstands and thinks So-yoon is asking to take Thumbelina for forever, and our eternally single guy gets into a panic attack. Even Thumbelina thought the same and was surprised. Choi asks So-yoon if she is insane and what kind of things she is saying, and So-yoon says she can't protect her sister now because she has to stay at the hospital for now and there are no more places that can be considered safe. So-yoon admits that she thinks Choi is the strongest hunter she knows, as he has unbelievable strength and the best fortress called the Fortillery. So-yoon bends down. She didn't bend for what you guys are thinking, but she bent to bow to Choi and ask for his help. Finally, Choi agrees and says it will only be until you recover. Thumbelina was getting all red and shy, and a notification told her that the gods were preparing for their honeymoon. On the Pokemon News channel, a reporter was saying that Entropy had appeared at a hospital in the middle of Seoul, and this could have led to a horrendous catastrophe. This time, it was completely handled by the cameraman, Choi, and there is a protest against the Defense Department for not having expected this situation. The department head who was watching the news gets angry and says, "How in the hell are we supposed to expect that after all, the Entropies are indigenous to Africa?" The assistant tells the department head that the other countries are requesting that they reveal information about Entropy subjugation. The department head angrily says we need to know something in order to reveal it. He thinks that his position will be at stake if he doesn't take help from Choi, so he asks his assistant what that guy is doing nowadays. The assistant reluctantly says he is in the middle of a date with a girl at his fortress. We see that inside the fortress, Thumbelina was very amazed to look at the room that the slimes prepared for her, and Choi says that the slimes must really like her. Choi was angry because the slimes gave her an even better room than his. The gods ask Choi, why are they living separately, and is this the plan for their child? Thumbelina was worried about her sister, and she requested that Choi keep her here instead of her, but Choi denied the request and said it was actually better for your sister if Thumbelina stayed here. Thumbelina asks what he means, and Choi tells her that this is just a part of his guess, but it's better for everyone if Thumbelina stays here. Suddenly there is a large commotion outside, and the Croacle makes a bad omen cry, and we see that there is an even bigger army of Entropy outside the fortress. Choi says this is faster than he expected, and he asks Fortress to begin interception. Thumbelina asks, what do you mean by expected? Did you already know that the monsters were going to come here? Choi says yes, she expected it, but she is certain now, and we see that slimes are controlling battle cannons and attacking the flying Entropies, but the help they are providing is limited. So Choi jumps into action and starts to annihilate all the monsters. Thumbelina was looking at the fight where Choi was fighting alone against the army of Entropies just for her safety, and she realized that she was the one attracting all of the Entropies, and just because of her, the Entropies appeared in this country. She breaks down and starts to cry, thinking that she is a burden for everyone. Choi shouts at Thumbelina to watch out as he is going to land there, and he abruptly crashes on the floor. Choi thinks that using a shovel in midair is harder than it looks, and he asks Thumbelina why she is outside, where it is very dangerous. Thumbelina says she knows she is the cause of Entropy swarming, and Choi says yes, it looks like that, so we must sweep them up and clearly make a plan. But Thumbelina interrupts him and says, please kill me. Thumbelina says the Entropy only follows the pheromones of the Entropy Queen, and her aptitude is that of an Entropy Queen. Choi gives a head bump to Thumbelina and says, why are you trying to turn me into a murderer? Thumbelina says, but as long as she is alive, they will be in danger. Choi says, don't be so short-sighted. We just have to use this ability properly. The fact that you gathered that swarm of ants over here means you should also send them away. Thumbelina says she doesn't have a core yet to control the monsters, but suddenly many monsters attack her together, and Choi grabs her by her chest and kills off the other monsters, and he says let's work on that problem together, and until then, I will protect you, Miss Thumbelina, and she asks, will you protect me for the rest of my life? Choi got confused with this question, but suddenly all the gods started to congratulate him, and the god also asks about where the wedding is being held. Choi angrily says I was just stating that we should work together to solve the problem, but the slimes also brought some party stuff and congratulated the newly formed couples, and Choi asks them, where did they get that suddenly? Were they preparing for this before? Choi says I am being serious here, and Thumbelina shyly says I am also being serious. I don't say stuff like that as a joke after all. I am the daughter of Pokemon Master Ash Ketchum. Choi gets shocked after hearing this because Ash Ketchum is a first-generation hunter and also the national hero who saved the country with his teammate Naruto Uzumaki. Choi was sweating, thinking that he had dared to bop the hero's daughter on the head. Suddenly, the slime army launched its cannons towards the ant army, and Choi says this isn't the time for this. We have to fight, and he tells Thumbelina to stay inside the fortress. Choi was in tension because Entropy isn't a big threat, but the problem is he has to fight them in midair. Thumbelina, who was watching all these, thinks that this many monsters are hard to defeat, even for Choi, and she begs for help from anyone who is watching them. The gods tell Choi that his wifey is in danger, and Choi sees that a different swarm of entropy is going to attack her wifey, but he can't reach her in time, and he remembers how in the past he also wasn't able to save her sister. Suddenly, Choi sees that a ring is shining on her wedding finger, and at the same time, a ring also appears on the wedding finger of Thumbelina, and a notification tells her that they have received a new donation. Thumbelina calls Choi for help, and suddenly, Choi was attracted towards her. By that, I mean, his body literally gets attracted to where Thumbelina is. This was the symbol of the gods' approval of the lovers, something that will never let them apart. The universe's strongest string of fate. Thumbelina asks Choi, is this his power as well? And Choi says, let's say yes, it's my power. Choi looks at the ring and thinks this donation is a bit different from all the other ones so far, and I can feel an incredible source of power from the ring, and it even resonates with the other half. Thumbelina asks Choi, are these the rumored couple rings? And Choi says yes, and it looks like certain people are trying to get us together. Choi was now enjoying the fight because of the ring's power. He was feeling light as a feather, and Choi killed the last swarm of monsters. All of the people who were watching Choi and his fight with the entropy were shocked to see his performance, and everyone asked, is this hunter for real? Choi finally took a break, and Thumbelina asks Choi, but the entropy will come back as long as I am here, right? Choi says yes, but the real issue is that Captain Africa is blocking entropy and preventing them from leaving Africa, and other countries would have noticed if the winged variant traveled all the way here, so it means the entropy actually came here from a nearby country. So now we have to follow the swarm to find its real location. We see that on the news. The reporter is telling us that there were 2 invasions of giant swarms of entropy in a single day, and once again, the individual who stopped their invasion was a cameraman. Does the government seem to be sleeping? We see that the defense minister is getting scolded by the president for this incident, and the president orders him to cooperate as much as he can with the cameraman. The defense minister puts off the call, and suddenly he gets another call. Unknowingly, he salutes and says, yes, Mr. President, on call. But this time it was Choi who called, and he says, I know I did hard work to chase them off, but I am embarrassed by how grandly you were greeting me, and Choi says I have some orders for you right now. A small number of entropy are fleeing to the east, so please track them down and follow them to their destination. We may be able to discover their nest. The defense minister shouts at him and says, how do you dare to order me around? But his assistant signals to him that the president ordered them to cooperate with Choi, so he finally agrees. Now Choi tells Thumbelina to come and prepare for the next step, which is to barge into the entropy nest. Choi assumes that if they flew to the east, it would be the nearest location to Japan, and once we know the exact location, we will go and boom. Choi looks at Thumbelina and says it's been a while since she's seen you smile. Choi says in order to get to Japan, he presents the fort's ambitious project and the new coolest jet to get there in a flash. Thumbelina says it's very cute, but Choi was shocked to see the jet, and he tells Slime that what he wanted was a sleek and sexy jet. How did that thing turn into something like this? We see that the entropy enters a cave, and a man asks them, are you guys the only ones to survive and return? He kills off the monsters and says you couldn't grab one girl with that many of you, so I will do it myself. Now we see that the cute, slimy jet is flying over the sea of death, and Choi was the one controlling the jet, and he says I shouldn't judge a book by its cover. The jet was also very comfortable because it was made of the same material as slime. Thumbelina says it feels like high-quality latex. Some time ago, Choi received information from the Ministry of Defense that the entropy nest is on Hokkaido in Japan, but due to political reasons, large attack squads or the army cannot go there easily, and they also fear the Sea of Death. That is why Choi moved alone with her wife, using international content as an excuse. But Thumbelina was afraid that she would become a burden to Choi, but he tells her that it was her power that helped Choi defeat those ant bastards, and if he is not with her, who will protect her? Now in the present time, Thumbelina shyly asks if she can be of any help to Choi, and Choi says that Miss Thumbelina is definitely a suitable host for the Entropy Queen, and once she gets near the nest, it will be as if there are 2 queens in one nest, and the monsters will start to go berserk, and Choi will use this opportunity to exactly locate the nest. The gods read Choi's mind and complain that Thumbelina looks like a bait and that he is going way too far, but Choi explains that this is part of the plan. Choi looks on the ground and finds that there are buildings in the middle of the mountain, and he thinks this is weird and wonders if this place was abandoned after the monsters appeared. Choi suddenly realized that these aren't buildings, and he told the slimes to hurry up and increase the altitude of the jet. We see that the buildings were the shoulders of a 4-star monster named Conqueror. The 4-star monster Conqueror has the ability to freely manipulate stone and iron, and in an instant, it can build or destroy a city. It is a mysterious and powerful monster. The monster attacks the jet plane, and we see the same man telling the monster to stop and saying, "What are you going to do if the girl dies?" as well as how rare it is to find suitable hosts for the queen. Suddenly, Choi attacks the monster with his shovel and kicks it, sending it flying. Guys, the cameraman had just casually sent a building-sized monster flying with his kick. The unknown man asks Choi where the girl is, and Choi says he doesn't know, and Choi looks at him and thinks he definitely looks like that Japanese hunter Shiro Yamato, so why is he looking for my Thumbelina? And this unknown man was also excluding some weird kinds of energy. That's it for today, guys. Thanks for watching. Please check out these awesome videos and like and subscribe to my channel.